Last year saw the release of the newest entry in the Street Fighter series, that of course being Street Fighter 6. SF6 is an incredibly fun and content-rich game, and so far I've been loving my time with it. The game's first season of DLC has recently come to a close with the release of Akuma, so I thought there's no better time than now for me to go over my top 10 most wanted DLC characters for Street Fighter 6. Before we get into the list, I just want to mention the one rule I have for this list. The characters must be Street Fighter characters, so no guest fighters, and yes, this does include Final Fight characters. Now, I know what most of you are going to say. Isn't Final Fight part of the Street Fighter universe? Characters like Cody are complete mainstays for the series. They've appeared in many games. And you're right, but I mostly want to keep this list focused to specifically Street Fighter characters. Don't get me wrong, I would love to see characters like Cody, Lucia, Zeku, Akira, Maki, Sodom, and maybe even like Hagar, as well as some other characters from other Capcom games. But as you can see, if I didn't have this rule, this list would almost certainly be filled with a bunch of guest characters. And I more want to talk about Street Fighter specific characters that we haven't seen in a while that I want to see come back. Pedantic rules aside, let's get on with the list.
Here comes a new challenger!
I feel like it's not an unpopular opinion to say that Street Fighter 4 doesn't have the best newcomers. Like, you have the fan favorite Juri, and to a lesser extent Seth, and some other kinda cool characters, but you also have the highly divisive Rufus and DeCapri, the kinda just there semi-protagonist Abel, oiled up Turkish guy, and evil Akuma. Again. However, there is one that I do kinda like, Gouken. Gouken is the master of both Ryu and Ken, and the brother to Akuma. After succumbing to the Satsui no Hado, Akuma murdered Gouken, but due to the power of plot armor and April Fool's jokes, he was only placed into a coma for which he eventually awoke. As the master of the two Shotos, he knows the Hadouken, the Shoryuken, and the Tatsumaki. However, he has different versions of them compared to the other two. He even has a back throw that leads to a full combo. In addition, I like the idea that since Ryu has mastered his training, Gouken is willing to take on new students in World Tour, so he can spread his teachings of peace. By the way, interesting things for them to do in World Tour will be a boost to characters I will go for on this list, so just keep that in mind.
The show must go on.
Alright, you know I gotta throw an oddball at you. So who here likes the roster of Street Fighter 1? Who can forget about iconic characters like Lee and Joe? Seriously, Joe? Joe's an asshole's name. Anyway, what am I talking about? Well, there is actually one character from Street Fighter 1 that I do want to see return. And that is none other than Eagle. Eagle is a bouncer who was employed as a newly rich noble family's bodyguard. He was hired to defeat Sagat but was unsuccessful and returned to the bar scene, eventually becoming a living legend. Sure, that. He first appeared in Street Fighter 1, but actually came back for Capcom vs. SNK 2. And using the same sprite, he was also in Street Fighter Alpha 3 Max. Please remaster this. Let's just get on to what I really care about with him. His moveset. Eagle is pretty unique for Street Fighter, using two stick-like clubs as weapons. This makes him have pretty good pokes, and he even has a lariat similar to Zangief. He also can use them for some really fast mid-range strikes, kinda like Honda's slaps. Also, I can't lie, I kinda want him back just to see where the hell he's been all this time. CVS2 and Alpha 3 Max are both not canon, so he hasn't shown up since Street Fighter 1. That's nearly 40 years ago. I mean, they even brought Retsu from Street Fighter 1 back in World Tour. And he's been in even less games. So, I think there's a chance here.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Yeah, this one ain't happening. Charlie Nash, or just Nash, first appeared in Street Fighter Alpha, where he was the mentor and friend to Guile, and was dedicated to taking down Shadaloo. This culminated in him confronting M. Bison on a waterfall, but being betrayed by an unknown helicopter pilot, presumably being killed. However, thanks to the magic of Colleen, Nash was pieced back together and brought to life, sort of like some Frankenstein's monster type creature. He ultimately helped the World Warriors take down Bison, giving what little life he had left in the process. As the mentor to Guile, Nash uses similar moves to him, such as his own version of the Sonic Boom and Flash Kick. However, in Street Fighter V, they revamped him to have more interesting electric powers, and changed his charge inputs into more traditional inputs to further differentiate the two. A welcome change in my opinion. He also gave Nash the ability to teleport. Nash is an awesome Street Fighter character, who I feel deserves to be in Street Fighter 6. But the only reason he's not higher is that I feel like his story for the most part ended pretty well, and I would be fine if they retired the character for now. But with rumors that M. Bison could be on Season 2's DLC lineup, I think Nash should be there too.
The top 5 reasons why Michael Jordan is the GOAT!
And now for the character who's perhaps the most done dirty in the entire franchise. That's right, I'm talking about the Brazilian basketballer Sean. Sean first showed up in Street Fighter 3 and was later playable in... Okay, well, he did show up in Street Fighter 5's story mode.
Unfortunately, you're a little...
I feel like my brain is going numb.
Man, this guy can't catch a break. His sister Laura got added into Street Fighter 5, but Sean himself hasn't been playable since Third Strike. But who really is he? Well, he's Ken's apprentice, so he is also a Shoto, but he's still very inexperienced in comparison to the others. You can even hear Ken mention him in his endless determination in World Tour. He does have his own version of the Shoryuken in Tatsumaki, but he can't shoot a fireball except for in one of his supers. However, he does have some other moves, like a dashing tackle and a dodge roll. Flood thinks he's a KOF character. Also, he's a great basketball player and throws one in his taunt. It actually does damage, too. Please bring that back. He's also the character that throws basketballs in the parrying minigame in Street Fighter 3, but when they brought this minigame back in Street Fighter 6, they got Sean from, like, Temu or something. Seriously, who the hell is this? Sean is definitely a joke character, but he's got a great heart and a lot of personality to him, and I think there's no better time than now for him to come back. Also, I feel like it's about time to end his losing streak. However, there is another joke character coming up soon that I want just a little bit more.
They'll be trying to drink their own sweat to survive, brother.
Speaking of Street Fighter 3 characters, let's talk about the face of the game, Alex. Alex fights with a mix of kickboxing and wrestling, and he is a mechanic from New York City. Not gonna lie, as a New Yorker, he's partially here because of bias. Also, he's based off Hulk Hogan, and I think that's pretty cool. During Street Fighter 3, he got involved with fighting against Gil in the Secret Society, but later became a rival to Ryu. Gameplay-wise, Alex is a grappler with some very unique moves for that archetype, with a chop that leads into a grab and a grab that specifically stuns the opponent. Alex later appeared in SF5, but he also appeared in the Wii game Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, being the only versus game he was playable in. This was a nice little appearance for him, but what the hell was he doing here? I'm also really interested in seeing how his story progresses, since in Street Fighter 3, he basically fights Ryu and loses to him, inspiring him to train and improve like never before, but the problem is nothing ever came from that. I hope that changes in SF6. I don't know how to start this entry. Like, I was legit thinking about what to say here for like 3 hours. Number 5 is Rainbow Mika. God, I hate writing intros. Our Mika first appeared in Street Fighter Alpha 3. She's a Japanese professional wrestler. She also appeared in SF5. She trains in the hopes of eventually becoming a wrestling champion, and she idolizes Zangief. As a Geef main, I relate to that. Despite her few appearances, she became a fan-favorite character. As a wrestler, she's also a grappler, having multiple different grabs, even from one of her normals, and a great anti-air grab. In Street Fighter V, they ended up giving her a lot of cool extra stuff too, like summoning in her tagmate Nadeshiko. Look, that's the best pronunciation I'm gonna get. She can help Mika out with moves, and can even throw a steel chair. They also gave her this microphone move that kinda acts like a focus attack, blocking one hit. It also increases the power of her grabs the longer she speaks. Her power is literally yapping. Mika's just really fun to play, and I like her dynamic with Zangief. I imagine she also can have a fun role in World Tour where she tries to get you to be a tag partner. Needless to say, I think she's a great fit for Street Fighter 6.
Dan Hibiki on PlayStation 4!
I would be remiss to not include the king of fighting game joke characters. That, of course, being the great Dan Hibiki. Dan made his debut in Street Fighter Alpha and was basically made for Capcom to mock the ever-loving shit out of SNK. Dan had almost identical moves to Ryo Sakazaki, the protagonist of Art of Fighting. He even got a costume parodying the Art of Fighting character Takuma, aka Mr. Karate, in Street Fighter V. This was done because Capcom thought that SNK was ripping their characters off with Art of Fighting, and to be completely honest, they probably had a point. No hate to SNK though, I like Ryo. Dan was also purposefully made to be awful at fighting, and is low tier in essentially every game he appears in. Yet, despite this, he has a surprisingly in-depth backstory. When he was young, he studied under the tutelage of his father, Go Hibiki, a world-renowned martial artist. That was until Sagat killed his father, but not before Go Hibiki kicked his damn eye out. Yeah, that's how he lost his eye. Dan swore revenge and trained under Goken to become strong enough to face Sagat. But he got expelled as Goken believed revenge was not a good reason to fight. Speaking from experience there, I imagine. As such, he only learned really bad versions of all the traditional Shoto moves, but he took them and merged them with his own techniques to create Psycho style, which he teaches to students. Besides being an insanely fun and popular character, this aspect to the character is really why I want him. I think his dojo would be a perfect opportunity for him in World Tour. He would be an obvious choice for a character that would be willing to teach your character, and I would love to take part in all the chaotic missions that you'd certainly be assigned in there. Okay, let's talk about his murdered dad's murderer. I feel like I don't even really need to justify this choice. If you're a Street Fighter fan, you know why Sagat's here. He's one of the most iconic characters in the series, and all fans know him, including his never-ending fireballs, his kind of weird laugh, his pet tiger. He really likes tigers for some reason, I don't really get it. Yet the king of Muay Thai has yet to get into Street Fighter 6. But let's do the obligatory plot synopsis anyway. Sagat first appeared in Street Fighter 1 and was the only non-playable character to show up in Street Fighter 2. He also looked like this. His story was essentially that he was a martial arts champion, but once he was beaten and gravely injured by Ryu, he dedicated his life to eventually surpassing his new rival, atoning for the sins of his past, and eventually struggling with the same evil entity that Ryu did when they first fought. That, of course, being the Satsui no Hado. He later appeared in essentially every Street Fighter game, except for 3. Oh, okay. So why should he be in Street Fighter 6? Well, he's fun and an important character, and I really think his story has great potential to be expanded upon. Honestly, he's probably the most likely character on this entire list to eventually happen. Also, check out this totally awesome, never done before or since combo that I did.
G.
I will be voting for
G.
Street Fighter V asks the very important question of what if Abraham Lincoln was a fighter? Huh. Street Fighter V asks the very important question of what if Abraham Lincoln was blonde and could punch fire? G, yes, just G, is the self-proclaimed president of the world. Is there any truth behind his presidency? Unexplained. Get used to that. G spread his message of unity and power to the people over the internet through his martial arts skill. He even showed up at EVO. Yeah, this was real. G's real-life voice actor, Christopher Corey Smith, showed up at EVO in character and costume, and then proceeded to give a speech. That's kind of awesome, dude.
Our great Earth is unique throughout the universe because we are all together as one.
Anyway, G shares a similar name, appearance, and moveset to the Street Fighter 3 character Q. Are they actually related? Unexplained. Who even is Q? Unexplained. As you could probably tell, there are a lot of mysteries behind both G and Q, and I think G should return so that they could potentially be answered. As for his moveset, he has a really cool mix of powerful throws and punches, as well as a bubble shield he can use. He can even do speeches in the middle of a game. His power is literally yapping. G's just a character that worked in essentially every way for me. His great design, his fun moveset, his cool mystique, and especially his snazzy theme. He sure is my vote.
All of us will become my and all life forms unshakable power. For now is the time that all Earth citizens join together.
A problem a lot of fans had with the roster of Street Fighter 6 was the over-reliance on characters from Street Fighter 2. And to a certain extent, I totally agree. The fact that every veteran fighter on the base roster was from Street Fighter 2, except Juri and arguably Luke, was kind of ridiculous. Like, I know the World Warriors are iconic, but I don't know if we really needed characters like E Honda and Blanca again. And for the record, I like Honda in this game more than I ever have in the series. However, I'm not against characters from SF2 returning, period. Like DJ, for example. He skipped Street Fighter V, so when he got into the base roster of 6, and with a spiffy new design, I thought he was a good choice. But I still see where people are coming from. But since Lily was basically just T-Hawk Jr., that meant that the only characters from SF2 not in Street Fighter 6 were the 4 Kings and... That's right, the original Bruce Lee homage. Fei Long is my most wanted character for SF6. Fei Long first appeared in Street Fighter II The New Challengers, where he was one of the 4 aforementioned New Challengers. He was clearly inspired by the real-life actor and martial artist Bruce Lee, with too many references to the man to mention here. However, in short, much like Bruce Lee, he's an action movie star from Hong Kong. Speaking of movies, just a fun little bit of trivia here. In the English dub of Street Fighter II's animated movie, Fei Long is played by Bryan Cranston. Who's Bryan Cranston? The Danger. That's who.
No, we're not done yet! You haven't seen anything!
A guy opens his door and gets shot, and you think that of me? No. I am the one who knocks.
But how does Fei Long fight? Well, he actually spawned a whole character archetype, that being the Rekka character. Rekka characters are known for having moves that can be input in succession to use the full effect. For example, Android 17 from Dragon Ball FighterZ. Rekka characters actually got named after one of Fei Long's moves, that being the Rekka-ken, a move of 3 forward-hitting punches that need to be input in succession to get all 3. He appeared in the later ports of Alpha 3 and in Street Fighter 4, but that's it. And I feel like that's a shame. I think he's one of the coolest and most fun characters in the franchise, and he hasn't really appeared in much of it. I also feel like I should clarify something here. I've heard hearsay from several people that Fei Long is no longer allowed to be used in any Street Fighter material, as the Bruce Lee estate has barred Capcom from using the character. And I want to make it clear, these claims are completely false. The rumor was first started by a Capcom employee who later retracted this statement by saying it was only speculation, and was just flat out refuted by both the director of Street Fighter VI and by Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter. Regardless, I want to see Fei Long in Street Fighter VI, and if his good friend and fellow new challenger DJ made it in, then I see no reason why he shouldn't either. Also, I really had nowhere in the script to mention this, but some guy named Killbox101 on YouTube made this mod of Fei Long in Street Fighter V, and this looks sick as hell. I really hope this becomes public at some point. I would definitely try it out. I'll link it below. Well, that's my list. Did you agree with my choices, or do you have your own most wanted characters? I know I missed a couple of good choices, so let me know your most wanted characters in the comments. Also, make sure to like and subscribe and press all the buttons that YouTube wants you to press. But either way, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you again. Peace.